My name is Thinh Nguyen. I'm from the University of Cincinnati. So just for an icebreaker, I put up a picture of both my office is here, the CD is here, and somewhere over here you can see my house. So let's begin. As an animal, when an animal go around going through the world and go around interacting with the environment around it, almost always there's some informational constraint. Okay, so even though the environment is often like very rich in information, the animal can only perceive like a small part of the information that presented to itself. Therefore, like when the animals like moving and interacting with the environment, with the small amount of information that it received, it need to figure out how to what is the good approach, what is the good strategy to do with the certain information to come up with pretty complex behavior and perform a wide array of complicated tasks, such as maneuvering around like cluster space or foraging or hunting. So echolocating bat is a very good example of an animal that having to operate with little information provided to itself. Echolocating bat doesn't have the luxury like us human have, that we can perceive the world with vision. So they need to perceive the world with all of the information that embedded in the echo that it received. So in this picture, you can see this bat is basically was able to catch a tiny fish out of the water. And to explain how complicated this task is, water acting like a perfect mirror for echo. So all of the echo that the bat was posing to the water, most of them are reflected out of the water, but this bat was able to catch the fish out of the water. So that is pretty amazing. Another example is bat was able to catch a prey mid-air, right? So that's another pretty complex task. Therefore, we can assume that there's enough information inside the echo for bat to do a lot of complicated things. But there are a few different views on the information that provided by the echoes. So the first school of thought is that the biosonar, the echoes actually provide bat with a 3D representation of the environment. Then bat can use that 3D representation to plan for its action and to go around the world. However, in our group, we actually think differently. We think the reason for the high detail and the informationally rich assumption is that a lot of previous experiments, people asked bat to locate some single target, and they was able to do that with high accuracy. However, the target in the experiment is very artificial. It's usually single target, and the geometry of the target is very simple. It's either a small sphere or cube. In the real world, as you know, a target often has a way more complex shape, and that have to be able to rely on some robust cue to deal with overlapping echoes to understand the complex environment. So yeah, the information that I received is not a lot, so it need to rely on something more robust. So in here is a study from 2013 from Dr. Gaibo's group. This show a pretty complex behavior. I will put my mouse here. When bat can approach and home in and catch prey in the middle of a leaf. So to explain why this task is complex is because so you have basically I hope you can look at my camera. So basically you have a leaf right here. then bat actually have just to first it have to detect either there's an anomaly in terms of geometry in the middle of the leaf, so that it can decide either it's even worth trying to approach and bite. Then after that, it need to figure out like where exactly is the prey in the middle of the leaf. I mean on the leaf. So that's quite complex test. So in that study, the author they could explain the behavior of bat was able to recognize whether there's a prey or not, and the answer was basically when there's a prey on the leaf, you should be able to hear a louder echo, and when the prey is absent, the echo is more quiet. But that couldn't explain the behavior of the bat who was able to home in on the prey. So Geibel suggested that maybe a microtis bat perceive a highly detailed acoustic image of the leaf and the prey. So we was able to reconstruct the shapes, the structure, etc. However, our group we have a different hypothesis. We think that a microtis use some other robust acoustic cue in order to home into the target. So in this study, we use a robotic model in order to test the feasibility of a microtis using the intensity cues of the echoes in order to home into the target. So our robotics setup for the bat, for the locomotion of the bat, we use a robot arm, as you can see in here. And on the robot arm, we attach a sonar head. On this sonar head, we have two sonar sensor, and these two sonar sensor is offset by 30 degrees, which is trying to be correct with the left and right ear from the head-related transfer function of the bat. So this sonar sensor will send out and read pulse of 42 kilohertz. So these then the readout of the echo will come back as a pressure waveform, get compressed through a gamma tone filter so that we can get an envelope of that waveform. Then we use the envelope as the echo information to feed into our control algorithm to decide where to go for the robot arm. For the target, we use a cardboard cutout for the leaf. And this is actually, it's actually reasonable because usually acoustic echo is mostly shape dependent than materially dependent. The only thing that I want to notice here is that all of the measurement is scaled up by 2. Therefore, that's also give us the reason why we choose 42 kilohertz, because that's a conservative scaling of the frequency that bat usually can pick at for their pulse. So bat usually they can pulse between 50 kilohertz to 140 kilohertz, but it usually pick around 100 kilohertz. So that's why we decide for the scaling factor of 2. So in here, you can see this basically our experimental setup with the robot, the bat, and the prey. And here's the task that we give to the bat. So we begin initially, we have a prey in here, and we have a bat position further away, a little bit lower and toward the left, right? Then for every time step, the bat need to move forward until the distance between the bat and the leaf is less than 40 centimeters. Then we end the trial. Every time step that move, it need to correct the azimuth, which is the arrow angle in yawn, okay, and the elevation, which is the arrow angle in pitch. When I say arrow angles, that means just the difference between the angles different between the bat and the target itself. Sorry, I use a lot of body movements you need to follow. So how can we do the azimuth correction? How can we reduce the azimuth to 0? So in biology, and this is experimentally proven that so human and animal can identify the difference between left and right ear. Is called interaural intensity difference. So we think that bat actually trying to minimize it interaural intensity difference. In other words, basically they're just trying to minimize the loudness of the echo between left and right ear. So for example, if the target is on a little bit on the right, and so I will hear the louder sound on the right, right? So I have to turn more to the right in order to like balance my left and right ear. So that's the idea. And how about the elevation arrows? And this is a little bit more tricky. So in bat, they actually use a wide range of frequency. They use a broadband pulses. And they actually was able to, in bat, they can embed the frequency with the elevation and the elevation. So fun fact, if you can see a bat ear, look into this part. I'm trying to see the camera. Look into this part of the ear. There's like a tiny piece of skin that come up in the middle of the ear. That part actually help the bat to differentiate object in terms of the z-axis. So here is embedded in the ears of the bat. So as you can see in here, this plot shows the sensitivity or up to a sound or to an object at different angles for different frequency band. So for example, for 50 kilohertz frequency pulse, bat can see the object around negative 20 degree, and at 150 kilohertz, like bat can see well at the center. So in order to simulate that behavior, we decide to for every time step that it need to correct the elevation, the bat head will sweep for 20 degree. It will make 5 different distinguished measurement at 5 different pitch. Then it will basically pitch the pitch that provide the loudest echo. Okay. So here's the flowchart of what I have been describing. So so first we randomize the position of the robot a little bit lower and to the left, but randomize the positions for the trial. Then we perform the azimuth correction by reducing the interaural difference, interaural intensity difference. Once the interaural intensity difference is less than a desired number, we proceed with reducing the elevation by like using different pitch trying. Okay. Then once this is like once you select the correct pitch, you move forward and you continue until the distance is less than 40 centimeters, then you can stop. So this is our experimental, this is our result for the case that bat is center in the middle of the leaf. So as you can see, this is the correction of azimuth. Yeah, as you can see, the correction of azimuth go towards 0, and correction of elevation also go towards 0. But you can see that the correction of elevation is a little bit worse than, it's a lot more worse than correction of azimuth. And this is to help you visualize how the bat move for every trial. This is the x-axis of movement, and this is the y-axis. As you can see, the bat move toward the target in the y-axis, so it's move up toward the target. I mean, sorry, it move in this direction toward the target, but also move up toward the target.
Can you finish in at most 2 minutes? Like,
yeah, I'll try my best. All right. So here we have, you can see that result visualized in this slide right here. But another point is we think that the bat may actually did not even see the dragonfly by doing so. It may just find the center of the leaf then trying to get there. So what we do is we run another trial with the dragonfly on the edge of the leaf. Then by doing so, we see like by doing so, we can confirm that yeah, our algorithm is robust. That just not, it's not gonna just try to find middle of the leaf and cheat through the system. Then we trying to run through some of the video that we had before to compare the robot behavior with bat behavior. As you can see in this slide, is the azimuth or estimation is not very correct. So does the bat. Like they actually, when we see the video, they actually come for the first try, they always make some mistake, but then they try to correct it by the second approach. And that's, I will try to show you this video in here. Okay, so as you see that this bat now is gonna make its first attempt. It's gonna make its first attempt and it bites, but it misses, right? Then it now it's coming back, make a second attempt, but still miss. But then maybe it touched the dragonfly and now it can localize where is the dragonfly. So to conclude this work, so so basically it's not necessary to assume that you need actually a high detail acoustic image to perform complex tasks. So we was able to do that relatively well, like in comparison to bat behavior. So yeah, so just by basically processing a combination of intensity cues in the echoes. So thank you very much. And I know that I may not have time for questions, so I will be in the Slack channel also as the coffee room if you have any questions. Thank you very much for our collaborators in University of Antwerp, Belgium. And thanks for my PhD advisor to give me a chance to give this talk today. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Thinh. Very interesting. So yeah, we have really no time really. Maybe one quick question. So how much is this robot behavior learned, or how? So you had to. So can you maybe elaborate a bit? So was it coded where the robot would go, or?
I tried to skip through all of the math this presentation because I want people to have more like a visual. So this is actually a non-learning algorithm. Like what we do is basically we calculate we do more like an error correction algorithm, right? So we correct the angle by reducing the kind of like the difference between left and right ear. Then we correct the elevation angle by maximizing the total loudness of both ears.
Okay, so, I understand. Okay,
so it's quite simple, but the interesting part is simple but it works. So we think that bat brain is not very big, so we should not give it like a giant neural network model.
No, this I understand. Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot. Let's move on to the next speaker.